Hey everyone. So now for something different. I am in a little podcast studio in downtown Tulsa where I have been recording some podcast episodes and some videos, and I thought I would just go ahead and do the live from here today. So lovely to see you all. Um, Go ahead if you haven't already and say hello in the chat and let us know where you are on this beautiful planet. So it is officially solstice week. We have entered incredible time of ascension and evolution. I'm sure many of you have been feeling it. There's no accident. I was guided to bring all of that information through in May, and all of those transmissions as part of this larger, it just feels like giant wave that we're all riding. So I do want to make sure that you all can hear me. So if somebody would just let me know in the chat that the audio is good, that would be wonderful. So as usual, we'll be drawing from the multidimensional structure today. This human has been busy driving into Tulsa, doing videos, all of that. It hasn't been planning what the afterglow and integration will be today. That comes from the multidimensional structure and from this greater field that we all are, and that increasingly am finding myself inviting others into an embodiment of, and to allow yourself human doing your busy life or in meditation doing spiritual things, but to do this beautiful seamless integration through, of course, the alchemy of higher love. Audio is great. Okay, good. So how are you all doing, and what are you all noticing as we move forward? Some of you have been going back and doing the transmissions more. Some of you have probably left a gap time for them. But yeah, let me know. Let me know what you're noticing as you move forward. Of course, I can tap the field, and what I'm feeling right now is a sense of isolation. Okay, so this is, and I'm being shown and told this is very common when you go through an expansion. Okay, and you put yourself in more expansive states, especially like we've been doing here, and we're in expansive community. Uh, you may for a time feel, increasingly othering, separate. And the best way, now I'm being shown something that came through on a spring download of 2021 at a hot spring. When we begin to incorporate these more expansive, multidimensional states, we'll often put ourselves, like, you go right into, let's say, 5D or 7D. That's a lot of information coming from more expansive dimensional experiences to integrate via the human form. So last time in the Afterglow and integration, we talked an awful lot about honoring, you know, this, this amazing body. And I see what's happening here in this segue is that it's not quarantine per se, isn't the exact right word, but there is this kind of, let's be very gentle with the human form as you, what they're showing me is like, if as you prepare to move overseas. Okay, so there'd be all these different things to do, and when you land in a foreign country, I moved to France when I was 16, so I know this experience very well. It's kind of an assault on all your senses, especially if you aren't fluent in the language yet, right? So you're having to assimilate all of this information. So shifting multidimensionally, bringing the human form into a greater, more expansive, multidimensional embodiment is very similar. And so, you know, I think back to that move to France when I was 16. We went to Montreal for a week and did French immersion. We prepared ourselves. France when I was 16. We went to Montreal for a week and did French immersion. We prepared ourselves, in very similar ways that I know many people here have. We've been through shadow work and purging, and same, I'm being shown, if you would go to scale a mountain, you work out, you prepare, you walk with a backpack, you go into higher elevation. And so that's essentially what we're all doing now. And that this Higher Love series has been preparation to be able to live in a higher octave. And what keeps being emphasized is the intensity of a multidimensional experience that, frankly, we were conditioned to be in the opposite. to ignore all of that. That's all not here. That's fantasy. That's your imagination as a little kid. And so we learned how to really focus down here. I being shown the scene from the Superman movie, 2015 Man of Steel, when he's a child and he can perceive all this information. He's overwhelmed by it. And his human mother has to kind of talk him back to focusing on something small. So interesting. That's like, whew, I'm live streaming, but it's like live streaming, right? A lot of information about how this process works. I'm just looking at the chat right now. Yeah, timelines are shifting. Yeah, a lot of, if you think about how we create using our focus, as your focus expands to incorporate more of your multidimensional remembering and this greater self that you are and this love that you are. All the old foci, like plural, focus plural, is not collapsing your perception and co-creating the old reality in the same way. I keep being shown like it's like a zoom out. So really talking about sensory overload. This is important because it can fry the nervous system. So be careful what you wish for in terms of a multidimensional awakening. It could be too much. So I'm being told there are some people engaging with this integration now or in the future who are, I almost get to sing in saying, hold on, you have to understand that it takes the body a certain amount of acclimation period to be able to handle all of this information. I think this, yeah, there's confirmation. This is a reason a lot of people just black out, go blank, can't remember a lot of these multidimensional transmissions and meditations. I remember a retreat in Bali, a gentleman just kept passing out. One of my former business managers said she couldn't stay awake for, a lot of it. So it just is, it can be just too much for the body. This integration today, this is being highlighted and spotlighted for us to really take a moment to consider the desire to move things along, and a little bit of that impatience is driven from, well, it's fear. It's not a lot of unconscious, just driven by achievement programming that we didn't even realize we were being driven by, all that comparison that we get into. And so, really feel into the lower back, the adrenals, and start to just, let's take some pressure off. Take pressure off, getting the project done, right? Moving ascension and evolution along. Believe me, it's moving. We don't have to do anything to move it forward. If anything, it's keeping pace with it, which is the segue they're giving me to say, that's exactly why we're bringing this conversation, these reasons, okay? It's a lot of energy to be moving through, but more importantly, what they just keep wanting to emphasize for some reason, that kind of got me curious, like why, anytime a conversation point just keeps getting underlined, it's like, oh, okay, this is really important. It's much more about the level and complexity of information. It's almost like I'm being shown like having 7 radio stations on at one time. And most of us would say that's too much, you got to go turn them off. And they're saying, you're not going to be able to turn them off. What do? You can't turn off the 7 radio stations. What do we do? It's an interesting question, isn't it? We're just being given that as a rhetorical question to consider. So it's inner harmonization. So it's inner harmonization. And the ability to run all of that noise through our body and not through our mind. So shift into your heart, out of the head. Yeah, the brain, you'll fry. It'll fry the brain. Yeah, run everything through the heart. There we go. That feels better, doesn't it? Let me know how this is landing for you. This is all new information for me, but it sure does make an awful lot of sense. Over the years, people have asked me, how do you do that? Like, even when I was just a spirit medium, like, oh my God, are people just talking to dead people all the time? And I was like, no, I'm aware of all this information, but I don't have to, you know, let it distract me. So they're saying, how did you learn how to ride a bike? Right? You had to do multiple things at once. You push off, you have to hold your balance, you have to keep the momentum until you get it. And that's a lot of what we're apparently learning how to do during these massively accelerated ascension flows we're in. You know that fried feeling, yeah. It helps when you surrender and you don't try to control anything. What? So there's the shadow work of unpacking all of our trauma responses, right? Definitely a recovering control enthusiast myself. Just keep everything organized and going so I feel safe inside, right? Yeah, we won't be able to control all of the incoming information. So how do we find our own, no matter what's going on? Well, part of what I'm being given now is as you expand and start to find that self-mastery in all of that, your own structure, right? What comes with it is an attenuation. So when you allow yourself an expansion, a lot of the thinking drops and you're not trying to place everything in little boxes everywhere in files so you can feel safe. All that's just out. And now you're just with yourself. So this is a lot of what it's like. It gets real quiet inside, that 0 point calm and quiet. And what I'm being shown, the things that do zing and come to the surface are important because those would be what's up for healing, what's up for transmutation. It would be further shadow that's presenting itself. So the idea isn't to like escape it all and do a big spiritual bypass. It's to become the ocean and allow yours, and now it's bobbing on the top, right? For us to collect. Yeah, there's so many different things. I'm thinking of the flute, and at first it's a lot of focus on coordinating the elements, but then as mastery comes, it becomes a flow state. Yeah, that's beautiful, Sarah Grace. Thank you. And we are this incredible human instrument, right? And there's all these different levels to our being. And so I don't want to paint a picture of perfection, because just this morning I had this moment of like revelation that yes, masters, ascended states for sure. But to aim for that, given the raw material we have and contracts and agreements we have to keep pace with the human collective, to not be so far out beyond where they are, precludes. So anti my former personality. Woohoo! We're getting somewhere now. Let's lower the bar and just allow ourselves to be in the difficulty and the density of like, wow, this place is something else. It's like, it's messy. We can't just make things very neat for ourselves so that we don't feel discomfort. We can try, but yeah, there you go. Expand back out and allow the human, I think it was in that second transmission, to be held. It's making peace with that and holding it. And it's making peace with that and holding it in the greater harmonic of your greater self. That's what I'm being shown. And then you'll drop out of that and we'll be in the busy state. And then you're like, right, oh, I can come back into holding myself. So it's both. It's an and. And it's loving the body and all the chaos. It's not judging it, resisting it, shaming it. You're glad to be here. The leading heart ops, how easy and fun shifting can be. Yeah, it's beautiful. The minute you said run it through the heart, I felt my heart intuitively switch on and power up. Yeah. Huge difference. And just over and over and over again, we have to remind ourselves to run it like that. Not flow like a surfer catching a wave right at home. Corey, you must have read my mind. I was just talking to my daughter this morning about this is an awful lot like surfing. You're going to wipe out. You're going to catch some funky waves. You're going to get water up your nose. But we want to keep getting back on the board because it's fun. That's essentially what we're doing here is having fun, right? How do you know when shadow comes up and not just head chatter caused the emotion? They're inextricably linked. So the chatter is the old embodiment's attempt to solve something that can't be solved from thinking. It can only be solved from feeling, is what I'm being shown. Yeah, see, so drop back into the heart and just let the feeling run. So if behind the chatter is anxiety, if behind the chatter is worry, drop in the heart and let the anxiety and worry run through the heart. It's a much more effective processor and transmuter and alchemizer. And the volume might go up a little bit at first on the anxiety or whatever. You might be like, ah, and that's okay, but let this incredible portal do its alchemy. It's very powerful. Because otherwise you're washed up surfing the waves. Yeah, beautiful. Yeah. Yeah, so, keep breathing. But I don't know, what comes in now so strongly is have fun. How do we make this a little more fun? How do we shift our mindset? Yeah, it's a lot. Yeah, there's a lot of intensity, and we get to choose our attitude and our mindset. What if we made it more fun? That's why I came into the podcast studio today. I thought, just like, I don't even know how it works. Let's just book it and have some fun. Let's see what it's like. And it's been really fun. My daughter's been helping me. And have some fun. Let's see what it's like. And it's been really fun. My daughter's been helping me. Yeah. You find it strange that the mind thinks that it can do the heart's job. Thinks. Yep. Well, it's because we've in this modern age put kind of basically since Cartesian era began with Rene Descartes, I think, therefore I am. Good God. We've put it's like the head on a pedestal, the intellect on a pedestal. And we've become out of balance in an objective way, trying to measure everything. Everything has to be evidence-based, data, right? Which is like, when you think about it, yes, I understand that to a certain extent, but when you reconstitute the multidimensional self and you find the balance between objective and subjective, you're able to read the unified field. You are able to get information across multiple dimensions. You are able to discern truth. You don't need to run around collecting data. It's just apparent. So this is, I'll just out myself here a little bit and say this is one of the conundrums I've had over the years of being like, I'm like, ah, shit, I'm so technologically beyond where the current paradigm is. Will you guys want me to talk about this stuff? Like, I just sound like a nut job to people who, it's like, I used to joke having a smartphone in the Middle Ages. How do you talk to anybody else, right? When it's not hooked up, you hear my own shadow and wounding there. But there is a kind of a practicality to it that I think now we're in the process of, it's getting rapidly bridged. And so I know I'm getting directed to get out here and speak about it. Technological innovation, a multidimensional self, let's go, right? So just keep that in mind, though, that most of us have spent decades in the conditioning and programming of the intellect is king, right? Not so much. It's not the apex of evolution, right? It's not the most intelligent, if you will, part of us. Our greater structure, our greater multidimensional structure is. As if that was even something to compare and compete for anyway. Like, to even play in that paradigm. There's more interesting things we could be doing now, such as transmuting density and fear. You've had several people around you talking about entities lately. Are entities actually an outside negative force, or are they simply an extremely unintegrated part of one's own shadow? Yes. I've seen everything. It's like it can be anything and everything. Um, I have dealt with very gnarly entities, so I don't want to discount that because that I can end up gaslighting people who have experience with that for sure. In fact, I used to joke, I'm like, just call me the exorcist. No, it's a whole gamut. It's absolutely a whole gamut. But you're right, thought forms, our own negative thought forms are a type of that energy, you know? So it's all of it. And then I'm always being drawn these days to just invite everyone to always go behind the question, to feel into what motivated the question and like what you're feeling, what that evokes in you. Usually when we talk about entities, it always brings up fear. So that's useful. What sort of fear is there and why? Everything works on resonance. So this is why internal transmutation and alchemy is so helpful because if you can really heal a lot of, let's say, depression that came down the family line, there won't be resonance with entities that are in those, uh, kind of that schematic of the or strata of the multidimensional field. There won't be simpatico, right? What's that phrase? Misery loves company, right? So we bitch and moan, we tend to attract other people who bitch and moan. It's the same thing for the multidimensional ecosystem. You can end up with some earthbounds and also I've seen it all. I've seen it all. Yeah, yeah. It's good that I'm speaking on this stuff because I come across sane. Yeah, for now. Even if insane concept. Yeah, and I mean, go to any insane asylum, psychiatric ward. I have this great story. I don't know if I've told this on the channel. A lot of my clients over the years have been psychologists and therapists, and one of them, the head of their agency, his eyes would change. He'd get kind of like, "Ew," and she'd be like, "What is up with him?" I'm like, "I picked up an entity, negative entity, negative, it's a spectrum." And then I went to see where, and I saw it had come from a psych ward, and it was from a patient, and it gave me its name. It was an earthbound spirit that hadn't fully crossed over yet, and so I cleared it, and then his eyes went back to normal. Kind of like a rider, Uh, and she's like, "Yeah, he had just done his rounds in the psych ward." So this is what I mean. Like when we're aware of this larger multidimensional reality, the rest of society is catching up. I think it's moving faster and even 5 years from now. So it is important to know about so that we're not discounting, that I love that quote from the book Hypatia. Whether or not you believe demons exist, they're still impacting you, right? So big multidimensional ecosystem, but it all works in resonance. And fundamentally, what I've discovered in my own direct experience is that if you're dealing with something like that, and I've dealt with a lot of that kind of stuff, it's bringing something to you to integrate fear, your own darkness, your own shadow. Yes, we are in a bigger, you can think of it as a conflict. I just choose to think of it as like the polarities trying to balance out so that everything can go home and harmonize and be in a higher harmonic. So there is a bit of tension. And yeah, I've had all sorts of experiences. That could be like a whole show. I tend not to talk about it because it brings up so much fear. Just touching on it